November 3rd, 1943, over Germany. 21-year-old William Reid gets shot in the head. His navigator is dead. His right arm is shattered. Blood is pouring down his face. His windscreen is blown out, and he's flying a 4-engine Lancaster bomber. With one hand, his left hand, because his right arm doesn't work anymore. And he's not turning back. He's going to Düsseldorf. He's going to drop those bombs. Then he's going to fly this aircraft home. With one hand, shot in the head. This is William Reid. This is what Scottish RAF pilots do. They don't quit. William Reid, December 21st, 1921, Baillieston, Glasgow, Scotland. Coming from a working-class family, Dad works in the shipyards, Mom handles the housework. Growing up in Glasgow's industrial area, tough but loving childhood. School goes well, especially math, but while he's thinking about becoming an engineer, the war starts. 1939, Hitler invades Poland, Britain declares war, and Reid at 18 makes a decision. I'm joining the RAF. Why the RAF? Because the sky means freedom, because aircraft are amazing, because for a Scottish kid becoming an RAF pilot is one of the biggest dreams. Training begins, hard, exhausting, but Reid is a good student, cool-headed, methodical, doesn't panic. Being a pilot isn't just flying, it's crisis management, and Reid shows natural talent at that. In 1942, he graduates as a pilot, gets assigned to Bomber Command, and this is where he meets the Lancaster. Avro Lancaster 4-engine heavy bomber, the backbone of Britain's night bombing campaign, dangerous missions over Germany, defenseless. But Reid wants this because he wants to contribute to the war, not just training flights, real missions. Right, I need to tell you about the Lancaster, because you can't understand what Reid did without understanding this aircraft. Avro Lancaster from 1942 onwards, the RAF's main heavy bomber, 4 Rolls-Royce Merlin engines, can carry 10 tons of bombs, 7-man crew, but here's the most important detail. It's not easy to fly. Normally you need 2 pilots, pilot and co-pilot, because the controls are heavy, require physical strength, especially when damaged. 4 engines, each with separate controls. Fuel system is complex. Electrical system is sensitive. Hydraulics are critical. To keep the aircraft in the air, you need constant adjustments, trim tabs, throttle, rudder, ailerons. Everything has to be balanced. And on a combat mission, everything is harder. You're flying at night, it's dark, German fighters are after you, flak batteries are firing, you can get hit at any moment. Under normal conditions, there are 2 pilots. When one gets tired, the other takes over. But on Lancasters, there isn't always a co-pilot. Sometimes there's just a pilot. And Reid was that pilot that night, alone. Now imagine this, flying this aircraft with one hand. November 3rd, 1943, number 61, Squadron RAF Syerston Base, Nottinghamshire. Briefing room, 4 p.m., pilots and crews gathering. Today's target, Düsseldorf, Germany, industrial city in the Ruhr region, factories, railways, strategic target. Plan, night bombing, over 200 Lancaster and Halifax bombers, going in waves, bomb Düsseldorf, return by morning. Reid's aircraft LL-L for love. 7-man crew, Reid as pilot, pilot officer Jeffrey navigator, sergeant man flight engineer, others in gunner and wireless operator positions. Takeoff, 6:45 p.m. Evening darkness has fallen. Accelerate down the runway, lift off into the sky. Hundreds of Lancasters on the same mission. Dark sky full of aircraft, but you can't see them because there are no lights. Radio silence. You're just flying. Toward Germany. Alone but not lonely, because hundreds of friends are on the same route. First 2 hours go smoothly, North Sea, Dutch coast, German border, and then everything changes. 8:45 p.m. Over Germany, roughly 15,000 feet altitude, darkness, stars visible, Lancaster moving silently, Reid at the controls, monotonous flight, then a sound from behind, the rear gunner yelling over the intercom, "Fighter! Fighter astern!" Messerschmitt ME-110, German night fighter, twin-engine, radar-equipped, found the Lancaster. Attacking. 20mm cannons firing. Tracers tearing through the air. Red lines of light. hitting the Lancaster's fuselage, metallic rattling sound, glass shattering, and Reid feels it. Sudden pain in his head, burning in his shoulder, hot liquid running down his face. Blood. He's been hit. But by reflex, he's maneuvering the aircraft, dive, then climb, trying to shake off the Messerschmitt. But a second wave of fire comes. This time worse. Windscreen completely shatters. Glass everywhere, wind rushing into the cabin, freezing cold. And Reid looks right. There's no co-pilot seat, but navigator Jeffrey is beside him. And Jeffrey isn't moving. Head slumped forward. Blood there. He's dead. Navigator dead. Compass damaged. Right engine wounded, smoke coming out. And Reid's right arm doesn't work. No feeling from the elbow down, shattered, can't use it. Only his left hand. And the Messerschmitt is still there. At this point, you know what a normal pilot does? Turns back. Abort mission. Navigator dead, pilot wounded. Shot in the head. Right arm not working. No windscreen. Compass broken. Engine damaged. Under these conditions, aborting the mission makes sense. Nobody would blame you. Staying alive is important. Get out of Germany, head back to England, make an emergency landing. But what does Reid do? Opens the intercom, asks the crew, "Everyone okay?" Answers coming back. Rear gunner, okay. Mid-upper gunner, wounded but alive. Wireless operator, wounded but functioning. Flight engineer, man beside him in shock but okay. Reid asks, "Jeffrey?" Silence. Man answers, "Skipper, Jeffrey's dead." Reid stops for a second, thinks. Bleeding head, non-working arm, dead navigator, damaged aircraft. Then makes his decision. "We're continuing. We're going to Düsseldorf." The crew is shocked. "Skipper, you're wounded. We should turn back." Reid, "No, we came out on this mission. We're going to finish it." And with his left hand, he turns the Lancaster toward Düsseldorf. With one hand, shot in the head. Now, hold on a minute, because flying with one hand sounds simple, but it's not. The Lancaster's control system is hydraulic, but still requires physical strength, especially if it's damaged. In your left hand, you've got the control column. With that, you're controlling pitch and roll, but the throttles are on the right side, 4 engines, 4 separate throttles. To adjust engine power, you need to use both. Trim tabs are there too to keep the aircraft balanced. You need to constantly adjust those. Rudder pedals with your feet, but when you're using your feet, you can't free your hands, because if you let go of the control column, the aircraft will drop. Under normal conditions, it's 2 hands, 2 feet, full coordination, constant adjustment. Reid's conditions: 1 hand, left hand, right arm unusable, shot in the head, vision blurry, blood getting in his eyes, everything harder. No windscreen, wind hitting his face, freezing cold. At 15,000 feet outside, temperature is minus 20 degrees. Compass broken, finding direction by looking at stars, but his head is spinning. He's in shock. And despite all of this, he's keeping the Lancaster balanced, adjusting engine power, maintaining course, going to Düsseldorf. How is he doing it? We don't know, but he's doing it. 9:30 p.m., still over Germany, approaching Düsseldorf. Reid keeping the aircraft balanced with one hand, crew silent, everyone knowing how hard this is. Then the rear gunner yells again, "Fighter, fighter, port quarter." Second Messerschmitt. Either the same aircraft came back or it's a new Hunter. Doesn't matter. Opens fire. Lancaster already damaged, already wounded, now more bullets coming, hitting one of the engines. Smoke increasing, flames coming out. Reid cuts the throttle to that engine, continuing on 3 engines. Damage to the tail, rear gunner yelling, "Turret's damaged, guns aren't working." They're defenseless. The Messerschmitt knows it, firing comfortably. But then something happens. Maybe ran out of ammunition, maybe spotted another target. Maybe they're lucky. The Messerschmitt leaves, Lancaster still flying, on 3 engines, with damaged fuselage, with dead navigator, with wounded pilot, with one hand, and Reid is still going to Düsseldorf, because he made that decision. We're continuing. 10:15 p.m. Over Düsseldorf, city lights below, but mostly dark because of blackout. Only searchlights sweeping the sky, looking for enemy aircraft, and flak starts, anti-aircraft guns. Explosions everywhere, Lancaster shaking with each explosion. But Reid maintains course. The bomb aimer is at his position. Over the intercom, bomb doors open. Doors under the Lancaster opening. Air resistance increasing. Aircraft slowing. Reid adjusting trim with one hand. Then the bomb aimer. Steady, steady. Bombs gone. Bombs released. 10 tons of explosives falling on Düsseldorf. Mission completed. Under normal circumstances, this would be a moment to celebrate. But Reid can't celebrate because the pain is too much. Head throbbing, arm has no feeling. He's just thinking, how am I getting home now? Because the outbound was hard, but the return will be harder. Fuel running low, engine damaged, no compass, and shot in the head having to fly the Lancaster with one hand. 500 kilometers to England. Leaving Düsseldorf, turning west toward home, but the problems don't end, they increase. One engine already stopped. Now the second engine is problematic. Oil pressure dropping, temperature rising. Soon that one will stop too. Fuel is running out because damaged tanks are leaking fuel. Hydraulic system partly not working, landing gear questionable. They don't know if they'll be able to land. And Reid's condition is getting worse, blood loss continuing. The head wound hasn't closed. Every movement hurts. Right arm completely numb, left hand cramping because for 2 hours straight, he's been holding the control column without a break. Exhausting, but he can't let go because if he lets go, the aircraft will go out of control. Flight engineer man trying to help, adjusting the throttles as Reid tells him. But he doesn't know how to pilot, can only help. The rest is Reid's. And Reid is flying. With one hand, over Germany, over Holland, over the North Sea, toward Scotland. Hours passing. Every minute feels endless. But he's not giving up. 10:45 p.m. Still in German airspace, passing through the Ruhr region, and flak batteries are active. Reid trying to evade but zigzagging with one hand is very difficult. Flak explosion bursts nearby. Shrapnel hitting the Lancaster. More damage. Another engine stops. Now only 2 engines. With 2 engines, the Lancaster is heavy, slow, losing altitude. Reid desperate. Level flight is possible with 2 engines but difficult. And they keep losing altitude. From 15,000 to 12,000 to 10,000 going lower. And fuel nearly gone. Gauge reading nearly empty. Reid calculating in his head. Can we make it to Scotland? They don't know. But there's no alternative. Bail out over the sea and parachute down. At night, North Sea, freezing water, survival chance very low. Only option is to keep flying. And Reid is flying. With one hand, with 2 engines, with an empty fuel tank. Shot in the head because he's got his crew. 7 men, 1 dead but 6 alive, and Reid is bringing them home. No matter what it takes. 2:30 a.m. November 4th, 1943 morning. Darkness, but on the horizon first light appearing. Dawn approaching, and Reid sees it. Scottish coast. Familiar territory. They're close to home, but fuel gauge reading 0. Engines could stop any moment. And they're testing the landing gear. Hydraulics not working. Wheels won't come down. They'll have to do a belly landing, meaning landing the aircraft on its belly. No wheels. Sliding to a stop, very dangerous. Aircraft could break apart, but there's no other choice. Reid radios the nearest base. Shipped them. Emergency landing. Wounded pilot. Aircraft damaged. Requesting priority landing. Tower responds. Cleared to land. Emergency crew standing by. Runway lights turn on. Ambulance and fire crew waiting on standby, and Reid is approaching on 2 engines. Slowly descending, losing altitude. Approach started, but at the last minute, one of the engines stops. Fuel ran out. Now only 1 engine, and that engine has almost no fuel. Reid puts the throttle to maximum, using the last bit of power, bringing the Lancaster over the runway. Wheels up, on its belly, and contact. The Lancaster's belly touches the grass. Metal scraping sound, sparks flying, aircraft sliding, speed decreasing but slowly. 100 miles per hour, 80 miles per hour, 60 miles per hour. Shaking is enormous. Everything rattling. Reid holding the control column, trying to keep the aircraft straight. If it veers to one side, it could flip. Has to stay straight. And it keeps sliding. 200 meters, 300 meters, finally stops. Silence. Engines stopped. Scraping finished. Lancaster sitting on the ground, torn apart but upright. And inside everyone is alive. Reid leans his head back, eyes closing. He's done it. Mission completed. Brought his crew home, everyone alive. Ambulance coming, doors opening, medics rushing in. They see Reid, blood all over him, face pale in shock but conscious. And his first words, "Is my crew okay?" Medic, "Yes, they're all alive." Reid smiles, then passes out because he doesn't need to fight anymore. He won. Reid is taken to hospital, RAF medical facility. Doctors are shocked at the first examination, wondering how he's alive. List of injuries: shrapnel wounds in his head, in 2 separate places, one near the right temporal lobe, came within millimeters of entering his brain. Bullet wound in right shoulder, bone fracture present. Nerve damage in right arm, no feeling from elbow down. Surgery required. Several shrapnel pieces in chest need to be removed. Blood loss serious, transfusion being done. And the most astonishing thing, despite all this, he flew an aircraft for 4 hours. With one hand, controlled the Lancaster, bombed Düsseldorf, brought it home, did a crash landing. Doctors can't explain it medically. They say adrenaline, but that's not sufficient, because adrenaline keeps you going for a while, but not 4 hours. This is something else. This is character, this is willpower, this is refusing to give up. Reid stays in hospital for a week. Surgeries are done, he starts recovering. And the squadron visits, commanding officer comes. "Skipper, you performed a miracle." Reid, humble, "Just did my job, sir." 1944, Buckingham Palace. King George VI places the Victoria Cross around William Reid's neck. Reid standing upright, uniform spotless, right arm still not fully recovered, but he can use it. Serious expression on his face. The king asks, "Why didn't you turn back?" Reid answers simply, "I had to complete my mission, sir, and I had to bring my crew home." The king smiles. "You showed extraordinary courage. Britain is proud of you." Pins the medal. The VC citation reads, "For outstanding bravery and devotion to duty, despite being severely wounded, continued to captain his aircraft, completed the mission, brought his crew home safely." Reid becomes one of the youngest Scottish pilots to win the Victoria Cross at 22 years old. But for him, the medal doesn't matter. What matters is that his crew is alive. Except for Jeffrey, they all survived. And that's enough. The war continues. Reid returns to the squadron after recovering, flies more missions. But that night, the night of November 3rd, 1943, is never forgotten. 1945, war ends. Reid, alive, completed his missions, won the Victoria Cross. But the war's over, now what? Stays in the RAF for a while, but leaves in 1946. Returns to civilian life, because when the war ends, they don't need so many pilots anymore. Returns to Glasgow, gets married, has children, builds a normal life, ordinary job, modest house, quiet life. Never mentions the Victoria Cross. Not ashamed, but doesn't brag either. "It's in the past," he says. "Everyone did what they could back then," he says. But sometimes old squadron mates meet up, reunions, and those evening stories get told. Remember that night Reid flew the Lancaster with one hand? They say. Reid quietly smiles. "It was a foolish thing to do," he says, but there's pride in his eyes. The 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s pass. Reid ages but never complains. Healthy life, happy family, and in 2001, at 79 years old, he dies. Crieff, Perthshire, peaceful death, buried with his Victoria Cross. And Scotland loses another hero. I need to talk about the crew from that night, because Reid did this for them. Pilot Officer Jeffrey, navigator, died in the first Messerschmitt attack, shot in the head, killed instantly, buried in a war cemetery, Holland. But the others survived. Sergeant Mann, flight engineer, sat beside Reid that night, helped him, survived the war, later worked in civil aviation. Rear gunner, mid-upper gunner, wireless operator, bomb aimer, all survived, all came home, all saw their families, had children, lived their lives. Because William Reid didn't abandon them to death. He could have turned back. Nobody would have blamed him. But he didn't. He kept going. With one hand, shot in the head, brought them home. And those men never forgot that. Every year on Reid's birthday, they'd send cards. "Thanks, Skipper. You gave us life." Reid, humble. "Just did my job." But those men knew the truth. Wasn't Reid a hero? He was. Let me open a bracket here. RAF Bomber Command in WW2 lost 55,573 aircrew. 55,573 dead, missing, POW. That's an enormous number. Bomber Command's mortality rate was 44%, meaning nearly every 2 out of every 2 aircrew didn't survive the war. Why so high? Because night bombing missions were the most dangerous missions. You're flying over Germany, in enemy airspace, fighters everywhere, flak in every city, and the Lancaster is big, slow, defenseless. Once you get hit, it burns, because it's full of fuel, full of bombs, and flames spread fast. You've got a chance to bail out by parachute. But in a very short time, most crews can't bail out. They go down with the aircraft. And this happens every night. Hundreds of aircraft take off, dozens don't come back. Reid knew this. Everyone knew, but they still flew. Because that was their job. Because the war had to be won. Because Nazi Germany had to be stopped. And that night, November 3rd, 1943, Reid didn't just save his own life, he saved 6 men's lives. Despite Bomber Command's 44% mortality rate, Reid brought his crew home. This isn't just piloting. This is heroism. Remember story number 27? John Cruikshank, Scottish RAF pilot, in 1944 got hit with 72 bullets, still flew his aircraft home, won the Victoria Cross, lived to 100. Now we're telling William Reid's story, another Scottish RAF pilot, shot in the head, flew with one hand, won the Victoria Cross. 2 men, same country, same Air Force, same medal, but different stories. Cruikshank flew a maritime patrol aircraft, Reid flew a bomber. Cruikshank wounded with 72 bullets, Reid shot in the head, and arm shattered. Cruikshank saved his crew, Reid did too. Both survived, both lived long lives. Scottish RAF pilots are like this, they don't give up. Don't look at their wounds, just do their duty. This isn't coincidence, this is culture, this is character. Cruikshank and Reid, 2 different men, same spirit. Scotland should be proud of them. And it is. Let's get into some technical details. Because flying with one hand is theoretically impossible, but Reid did it. How? First, flight engineer man helped, adjusted the throttles following Reid's directions, balanced engine power, but control was Reid's. Second, Reid used the trim tabs to the maximum to keep the aircraft balanced so he didn't have to constantly apply pressure to the control column. Third, he used his feet on the rudder pedals for directional control, and this normally frees your hands, but Reid's hand isn't free anyway. His left hand is on the control column. Fourth, and most importantly, Reid was such a skilled pilot he could fly the Lancaster instinctively. Didn't need to think. It had become reflex, thousands of hours of flight experience. Every movement automatic. But still, for a man shot in the head, experiencing blood loss, in shock, to fly a 4-engine bomber with one hand for 4 hours is medically and physically nearly impossible. But Reid did it. Doctors later said adrenaline and willpower. Not a sufficient explanation, but there's no other explanation. Let me ask you something now. You're shot in the head, your right arm doesn't work, your navigator's dead. Aircraft is damaged, and turning back makes sense. Nobody will blame you, everyone will understand, but if you turn back, the mission fails. Düsseldorf won't get bombed. And in your head, there's a voice, you have to bring your crew home. At that moment, what do? For William Reid, the answer was clear. Keep going. The mission matters, but the crew matters more. Those 6 men are counting on you. You're not sending them to their deaths. You're bringing them home, no matter what it takes. And Reid did that, with one hand, for 4 hours, from Germany to Scotland, because he had responsibility. This is what leadership means. This is what being a commander means. You put aside your own pain, your own fear, your own wounds, because your men are looking at you, and you're not going to let them down. Reid didn't let them down. That's why he won the Victoria Cross. But more importantly, that's why those 6 men stayed alive. William Reid lived 79 years, shot in the head, flew with one hand, brought his crew home, won the Victoria Cross, returned to Glasgow, lived a normal life, died quietly, never bragged, never saw himself as a hero. "Just did my job," he always said. But here's the truth. That night on November 3rd, 1943, William Reid did the impossible. Medically impossible, physically impossible, but he did it. Because that was his character. Because his crew was counting on him. Because Scottish RAF pilots don't give up. Cruikshank flew with 72 bullets. Reid flew shot in the head with one hand. Both won the Victoria Cross. Both came home. Both are Scotland's greatest heroes. If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe, leave a comment, and tell me, could you fly a 4-engine bomber with one hand after getting shot in the head? I don't know if I could, but Reid did, and we should remember him.